Hey, welcome back to For Your Reference. I am actually the quiz master for your phrase or mine this week.
Yes, you are.
All right, so it's a phrase. It's more of an Irish than a Cockney sort of origin, and the phrase is Jack Palanting.
Jack planting,
Jack Palanting.
planting.
I will give you no more clues, sir.
It means that to showboat.
No, and I think this might have been the first time you've lost your phrase or mine. It actually means dancing, which is what I'm doing right now.
You can dance and while showboating. I'm showboating right now.
I guess that means I get to choose next week's episode, but Avengers is coming out, so possibly that.
We'll see.
All right. Well, let's all Jack Palance together to the theme song as we get into another episode for this week. Hey friends, welcome back to For Your Reference podcast with your co-host Katie
and OT.
And this week is your pick.
Yes, it is. So I decided to go with Escape Room.
Escape Room, yes. So this was a movie that came out this year in February in America.
Yep.
The budget was $9 million. It made $18 million in the opening weekend. And according to IMDb, it grossed $56 million in America. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's decent.
Pretty great. If you're new to our show, we don't really go with the ratings of things. We kind of just feel our way through life.
Yes, and this movie being done by or featuring Jay Ellis and being part of the Lawrence Hive, I thought
he who must not be named.
I thought it would be a good pick for this week, regardless of the ratings.
Take a knee, cadet. Too soon. So we're covering this movie today, and it is quite topical. Escape rooms have taken the world by storm. Australia is no exception. I can't really remember escape rooms being a part of my adolescence. It feels like it's kind of just cropped up in the last few years.
Yeah, it's become quite popular more recently.
Yeah, and I don't think OT has actually been to an escape room. I guess if you're not counting this podcast and us closing the door and you not being able to leave for an hour, you might call that an escape room. I'm not sure.
Then again, I'm black being led into a room with no way out. I'm not going to put myself into that.
You're not going to be the last one standing. Let's just say that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually been in a couple of escape rooms.
Yeah. How did you find the experience?
Well, I've gone with two separate groups of people, and both of them I never want to see again. Let's just say that. You regard people so highly until you go into an escape room with them and they keep counting the plastic rubies and you're like, dude, this has nothing to do with anything. There's a
plastic rubies? Like just decoration?
Yeah, let's just cut back for a second because aside from suspending belief, this movie had so many effects to an escape room, and I'm pretty sure for avid sort of escape roomers, I'm just going to coin that, it's literally laminated paper on a wall. Like that's as far as you go with effects. You'll be lucky if you have a lock or two. But yeah, just in general, like I've done escape rooms, and I just don't care for it. I don't care for the people that invite me to go there. I will regard you a lot less, and I don't regard people much to start off with. I did for a long time growing up. I did enjoy the point and click games where it's like really shitty games that were made in paint and
Yeah.
you click on the cupboard and then you click on the combination.
Like an Agatha Christie click and point
No, this
to
was, oh, come
fix.
on now. This was even before then. These were like $2 animated sort of,
Find the
I can't
hidden
remember the website.
find hidden items or
There's
something like that.
there's Mini Clip that has like lots of games on it, but I think it was even before Mini Clip. It was literally like just drawing of lines, and that was you in the room. And then I kind of got bored with the usual ones, and then I stumbled across like some Japanese site. Those puzzles were
Whoa.
much harder. No, not the exciting ones, not the ones that need a rating for it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I understand the concept of escape rooms. I do think they are quite fun, but it is quite funny that we pay people to lock us in a room because I guess our lives aren't as exciting because we don't have gladiatorial games anymore.
Yeah, we need to find an outlet.
Well, you would be the first to go. I think we established that.
By we, I mean you.
Oh, by me. Right. As long as I can be in the world of Spartacus, I'm fine with that. So let's go back to the actual movie we were talking about. Not as exciting as Spartacus, but you should definitely give it a go because I'm pretty sure we've referenced it many times.
Yes, we have.
Yes. So going back to Escape Room, it was great. I think before we actually dive into our actual opinions, it is important that we preface this with I see this as a stock standard. Aside from the fact that it's Escape Room, it's pretty much a run-of-the-mill horror-ish type of movie. And the reason why I preface it this way is because we don't have much expectation for these sorts of movies, story-wise, character development-wise. So we kind of give it leeway. If you've listened to any of our episodes, Black Panther, us specifically, even Get Out, we had a lot of expectations of what those movies should be or how good we expect it to be. Escape Room and, other movies of that ilk, like Cabin in the Woods, for example, we're not looking for our lives to be reawakened by watching it, essentially. So let's just put that on the table. So I'm not really there with my super, super amateur discerning eye for watching things. I guess in a nutshell, I enjoyed the movie. It was quite watchable. I probably won't watch it again. but for the time that it asked of me, which was an hour 39 minutes, it was fine. I wasn't bitter by the end of it. I thought the movie was great. It was great for the time that I was watching it. The acting was pretty stock standard, even though I did think that the actress that played Zoe was quite good. We'll go through the cast in a second. Taylor Russell. But, in these sorts of movies, I'm not expected to be wowed or, be changed by watching it. So I felt all around it was a good movie.
I thought it was an okay movie based on the fact that I've seen better of this type. Like Escape Room isn't a new concept.
So,
There was so, and I think before that, I think one of my first experiences with this kind of type of movie was Cube, I think back in 1997. So it's quite ages back, but
the movie buffs are quaking.
yeah, and I think Cube was done so much better and more tasteful. The storyline was a bit more complex, and the characters had more background and more foundation to them. Whereas in this, we find people like Jay Ellis, who, in as much as I like him, he didn't really portray the character in as much depth as he could. All right, he's this.
I didn't really like Jay Ellis, but at the same time, I don't think the script warranted or allowed the actors to breathe. It was kind of reduced to one-liners, essentially.
Probably, but Jay Ellis had quite a bit of airtime, considering he wasn't one of the main.
More than I wanted, yes. Let's go through the cast. So Zoe, we've mentioned a couple of times, is played by Taylor Russell. We also have Ben Miller, who's played by Logan Miller, if you'll pardon the pun. We also have, just to clarify, spoilers, obviously, welcome to For Your Reference. We live in Spoiler Town. So Zoe was in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Yep. Ben inadvertently killed all of his friends that were in the car with him, drunk driving. Jay Ellis's character, Jason Walker, he
Killed his best friend.
he killed his best friend. Yeah, let's get to the end of the movie. He did kill his best friend. We've got Tyler Labine playing Mike Nolan, who's the trucker guy.
Yep.
The unassuming trucker guy, and his brother and his co-workers died in a mine, and he managed to survive. Other notable characters is Amanda Harper, played by Deborah Ann Woll. She was good. She was solid. We'll definitely need to talk about her.
Ann Woll, yeah.
Yeah. And then we also have Nick Dodani. I apologize, Nick, because I feel like you would enjoy our podcast and you might be listening to this. Who plays
surely
Danny
he has better things
Khan.
to do.
Well, he's probably filming the new season of Atypical, but if you're not, feel free to listen to us and everyone else that's listening. Another character we should mention is the Games Master, Wu Tan Yu, played by Yorick Van Wageningen. And I feel like Yorick would be a fan of For Your Reference, so I do apologize. Feel free to invite us to an escape room and we can apologize appropriately to you.
Well, because we've watched a fair few of whodunits and some thrillers and puzzle sort of movies, and
Yes.
we knew there was an anagram in there somewhere.
Yes.
Were you able to decipher it by the time we reached the end of the movie and you're like, yeah,
No,
this is it?
No, but I was looking at the IMDb trivia. I couldn't find any sort of semblance or any sort of reference, if you'll pardon the pun, to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None with U.N. Owen, otherwise known as
Unknown.
That blew my pants off.
I felt dumb not realizing
My
that.
one brain cell just disintegrated. But I felt like that was homage to, if not the whodunit genre, but just to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. But I couldn't find it on IMDb. So whoever's contributing to IMDb, you need to get on that. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, so Wu-Tan you knew there was something important about it. But yeah, it was one of those things where like, oh man, we should have known what that was.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't commit enough resources to my brain to try.
No, just admit you were bested.
Not bested, more like just, I didn't care enough to try and figure it out.
And if you had gotten it right?
I'd be dancing here singing songs of joy.
You'd be Jack Palancing.
I'll be Jack Palancing right now. but that didn't happen. Yes. I just didn't bother. I knew it was an anagram of sorts, or it had some sort of importance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But life goes on.
It does.
Life goes on. So the movie starts with essentially a spoiler because for the cast, it is quite diverse. So even though we didn't know anything from anything, we knew that was Ben's character. Yes. In what seemed to be the last room. And the reason why we know it's the last room is because as the movie progressed, they all huddled together as a group and they continue the puzzle as a group. Right?
So we knew that Ben is one of the survivors, or is a survivor until the end.
Yes, based on the opening.
Based on the opening, yeah.
And again, obviously, spoilers, welcome. And then because when we got to the ending, we're like, why did they show this as the opening scene? Why would they spoil this and put it right at the start of the movie? And as we found out, that actually wasn't the big revealer. That wasn't the big twist. The twist was he gets invited by the Games Master, Wu-Tan Yu, otherwise known as No Way Out. And while he is being killed or strangled by Wu Ten Yu, Zoe's character comes from behind
Yes.
and takes charge. So I thought that was quite neat. It was quite cute. It wasn't a twist to end my life, but it was great.
What I didn't understand is Zoe faked her own death, or because she was foaming at the mouth because there was poisonous air everywhere.
Yeah.
So how exactly did she? Because I just showed an oxygen mask.
But I think the point is the cameras were kind of a faux proxy for Big Brother, and they weren't actually cameras because, I'm sure the cameras that they had, because seems to be in the dark web that's earning millions and millions of Bitcoin or whatever the current currency is, they would have, backup cameras. So I don't think the obvious looking cameras were actually capturing the event, right? So in any case, we found and we discovered that by smashing the cameras, oxygen masks were coming down. So that's possibly how she was able to survive.
Oh, yeah, but it still doesn't explain the foaming at the mouth. You can't really fake that unless something's happening,
Do you want to try it?
Oh, then again, maybe it was little amounts that caused that, which I'm not a medical person.
Or maybe she did get some sort of poison at that time, but it wasn't lethal enough for her not to be able to reverse it. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't know, man. I'm really not for cheesy callbacks in movies. And when she started smashing them, she was like, atoms don't change as you watch them. Atoms change, but it's not synonymous with you watching it.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
The same way a pot does boil, but it's not boiling because you're watching it, but it still boils. Right?
Yeah.
There's your 5-year-old philosophy out the window right there. Read a book once in a while, people. Get it together. So you have Zoe's character that ends up surviving. I guess they just mark her as dead until they can actually confirm it. That's why when Ben met with the games master, she was declared as dead, even though she wasn't confirmed 100%. But let's talk about the characters. Who was the standout for you? Not even acting point of view, just from a story point of view. Who stood out to you?
In terms of annoyance, it has to go down to Danny Can, Nick Donnie, because he's done apparently what? He said that he's done more than a fair share of escape rooms and was vaguely familiar. He was fairly familiar of what needed to be done.
And he wasn't doing it.
Yeah. So when things started to go awry, or when people started noticing, hey, this goes beyond just a plain escape room, Nick was still enclosed in his mind that, oh, this is so authentic. Even when the place was blowing up and there was real fire, he was like, oh, wow. Think about practical effects. They're going above and beyond. To a normal person, I feel like I just needed to punch him.
Like everyone else in the movie?
Yeah, you don't react like that, regardless of how many things you've been through.
He was a bit distorted from reality.
Yeah, it comes to a level where this becomes so different to what you've already done. It's not like me playing pretend cops and robbers and then me going to an actual ride along with a cop and being like, oh, wow, this is so, this is so real. Oh, man, it's so ridiculous how his character wasn't able to realize the gravitas of the situation and to actually be helpful because he did nothing of...
Did I not tell you that he would be the first to die?
You did. And I was so happy for him to be just taken out of the storyline because he was pissing me off.
He is that motherfucker in the corner counting those plastic rubies that have nothing to do with the game. And you're like... You're a waste. You need to get out of this room right now before I strangle you. He's that character. But I must say, kudos to screenplay writers and directors, and we're quite new to this movie world. So whoever's responsible for the story, we do give some plaudits to because, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but even 5 years ago, we would watch movies about, the gaming world or about, technology and advancements, right? And the script would be written so clunky and so unrelated to who these characters should be. So much of the times the nerds are betrayed by 50 Cent in glasses. You're welcome. You're welcome. Hashtag never forget. But you know what I mean? Like so many times you see nerds and they're not really nerds. You know what I mean? They're like what 50-year-old out of touch people think nerds should be. So credit to everyone involved in this movie that contributed to the portrayal of Danny Kahn's character, because that is quite true to nature. I can't even start to list to you the amount of people. I don't know why I have so many people surrounding my life that are obsessed with escape rooms, but I've managed to evade it as much as I can. But yeah, the fact that Danny was so obsessed with it and he was so into it and all of the details, I think it was quite close to how, people are when they're obsessed with escape rooms. I don't think it was that, disjointed from reality. You know what I mean? I feel like the generational gap is closing in regards to who's making the stories and who's writing these stories.
Maybe so, but to some extent, I would like to believe, like any human would be able to perceive danger, regardless of supposed experience in said field. Like if I'm trapped in a cage with a bear,
yeah,
and I've been trapped in cages with fake bears before, but now I'm trapped in a cage with a bear that's actually moving a bit, has some sort of motor skills, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, mate, this bear is so realistic. I'm going to start panicking the hell out. For Nick or Danny, for that reason, he just saw it as all part of the game, even when they were boiling. Like the room was they were being baked alive, and he's still thinking, oh,
this is so cool, guys.
This is so cool. Take your jacket off. Wow,
And I guess, we're kind of getting ahead, but you talking about a bear in a cage, it reminds me of Alone. Is it this Discovery Channel?
Yep.
Or National Geographic?
I would say Hallmark. Not Hallmark, sorry. History.
Okay, History Channel?
Yeah.
Okay. Not Hallmark. That's for your Lifetime movies.
Yes, it is.
Your Hallmark movies. Yeah, this probably won't be on our official For Your Reference, but if you do want to see people surviving out in nature, you should try Alone because it is quite good.
Yes, it's quite good and quite frustrating, especially when people are taking opportunities away from actual talented people who could navigate such scenarios.
Because essentially there's a contestant that talks a big talk in his package, and you meet him and you get to know his life, and he essentially says, if you see me and a bear, look after the bear.
And then the next minute he walks into the jungle and sees a bear's cut and is like, bear's gut, I'm out of here.
He actually doesn't see a bear at all, but just because he saw the fecal matter of a bear, he ran off the island, essentially wasting a contestant's opportunity. So check out Alone. I don't know if we'll ever cover it on For Your Reference, but, we did enjoy our time in the sun with that show.
We did.
Yes.
We did.
So
it's
let's
quite
go back.
Entertaining.
It is quite good because let me just spend a few more minutes for those that are intrigued with this show, because the first section of the Alone show is essentially survival. It's physical needs and survival, finding your shelter, finding a place for a good source of water, not drinking 9 quarts of dirty water, being able to find food, being able to cook food without predators, surrounding you. right?
Yeah.
So that's the first half of Alone. And then the second half of it, once you've established your settlement and once you've got, some sort of consistent sort of livelihood going, it's that mental survival. And that gets quite interesting.
It does.
And it rivals a lot of the run of the mill sort of horrors that you watch, because these are actual real people surviving, and all they have is essentially themselves being their own camera crew, and all they have is a satellite phone. And people that go through so much before they even throw the towel in.
Yeah, because it's a lot of money, and you can get to see people in their psyche and just how interesting humans are when they're completely secluded with no sort of companionship, not being able to talk to anyone. You with your own thoughts.
Yeah.
It's one of the most intriguing things that could happen. And I feel like at a base level, all horror movies should be founded on that. The fear of being alone. Because even in escape rooms,
Yeah.
because we had people dying and being, progressing through in a group, but an element of being trapped alone, like Saw did. Like Saw did so many good things and laid out so many good foundations for horror movies to date.
And I've never watched Saw, so we'll need to get me onto that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Saw. Lee Wannell, our Australian king. I should be
Yep.
standing him for a lot more. But yeah, so we'll definitely watch Saw one of these days. If you want to extradite it, let us know. But yeah, we definitely need to look into that. I think you're asking a lot. If you're talking about horror movies, you're asking a lot, because I guess the genre, it's not a prerequisite, but it is quite common for horror movies to have that slash and gore type of element. And that kind of gets superseded by any sort of, bolstering of the story, if you will. So I guess if you're talking about, trying to add this element, probably more in the vein of psychological thriller. That's what values your Mongolis more.
True, but not all horror movies should just be based on gore,
I agree.
Gore is
and not
its
all horror
own
movies are.
subgenre of horror movies where you can actually go out and search for.
I know, but I'm saying that's the most common.
Yeah, it is the most common, but that's not just the basis of what a good horror movie is.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many slasher film movies out there. You have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is good. Well, the original one is good. And then
hang on. We talk about this all the time, just like Prison Break. If you're going to recommend something, you need to recommend all of it. Well, even the bad parts of it.
I'm recommending the original one.
Oh, well, good on you. IMDb, this is a perfect example. Looking at IMDb for Escape Room, the genres are action, adventure, drama, horror, mystery, sci-fi, and thriller. You see what I mean? Choose a lane. Choose a lane, people. Just like Ryan Reynolds, choose a lane.
Where would sci-fi be in this?
I don't know, but I'm not done talking about Ryan Reynolds. I know he's given us Deadpool, but don't forget, he also gave us Deadpool 2. You need to choose a lane. Are you the hunky heartthrob, or are you the funny, unassuming guy? Because you can't be both.
Because he did The Notebook.
That's Ryan Gosling. You know what? The funny thing is, I haven't even watched The Notebook, and OT has. Yes.
I get my Ryans confused, as do a lot of people out there.
Yeah,
I'm
just
sure.
like me and Chris Pine and the other one.
Hemsworth.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? We stand a strong Hemsworth family. Even the fourth brother.
There's a fourth brother?
Yes.
It's Liam, Chris, and who?
Liam, Chris, the one that's in Westworld, and then the other one that I don't think acts.
Ah.
We stand all the Hemsworths, so if any of you guys are listening to For Your Reference, because we have such famous clientele, Welcome. But we do love the Hemsworths, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about escape room.
Yes, we are. So I think we've diverted so far from what we're talking about.
No, we're using the clues. Just like the Hardy Boys. Are you getting a clue?
I'm getting a clue.
Where is it pointing?
Our clue is pointing towards you.
Oh my.
Yes, so
Are we going to take an intermission?
we'll be back after this break. So
So before recording this, we actually watched the alternate opening and we actually watched the alternate ending.
oh yes, we did.
So near the end of the film, you know what I've noticed is also a habit of mine? If I really like something, I say film. But if I don't like something, I say movie. For examples, listen to our Us episode and you'll see that quite ardently. I don't know why I called this a film. Near the end of this movie, the games master, Wu Ten Yu, explains to Ben that the appetite of this blood sport, because he did reference gladiators as well. And he was saying, you know, our thirst for blood is getting stronger and stronger, and they want more and more. They want more elaborate sets. They want, you know, more targeted sort of characteristics of, you know, the people going through these adventures in the escape room. So he mentioned that there were pro athletes one year, there were savants another year, and I'm sad that they didn't call you. Because you're a savant of that ass.
What?
So with the alternate opening scene, we have a presumed famous soccer team.
Yeah, 5 soccer
I'm saying,
players.
look at me. I'm so American. I'm saying soccer.
5 soccer players.
Football.
Yeah, with their manager
Yes.
go into the room and they start figuring out that the escape room has already started, like the game has already started.
Yep.
And unlike the cast that's being the main cast in the movie,
Yep.
they don't have the brainy or the witty character to try and solve all this puzzle and put everything together. Because one of the guys gets a screwdriver and starts jamming it into a keyhole,
Yeah.
and it breaks, and you know they're gonna need it to try and escape the room later. So they all just end up dying because all they did was panic and try and break
Well, the
doors.
efforts were frivolous, essentially. And I'm glad they didn't use that as the opening scene, because that's pretty much the first, like, 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
But you're condensing it into, like, 5 minutes. So why would you watch that?
And then sit through.
Yeah, because it essentially spoils the build-up and the heat rising, if you pardon the pun, because it was an oven. So there was really no need to have that opening scene in there. I think it was enough to know that, you know, it's happened before.
Yeah.
And I think the difference with the opening scene is the stakes were a lot higher for the main cast, because, you know, they're the downtrodden, they're the underdogs, and they really needed that $10,000, right? Not knowing a lot about football, I know that they get paid quite a lot. So OT, if you want to live your dream of being a football player, I wholeheartedly support you.
Yeah.
As long as you come back to this podcast. So essentially they get paid a lot. They get paid a lot every game. So why do they need that $10,000?
Well, but that's just solely for big clubs, or if you're in the Premier League in England.
They're probably still getting paid more than to be in an escape room just to get some, you know, little pennies here and there.
So, well, regardless of how much money they make.
The point that I'm making is they didn't really want to be there. They weren't in the mindset of, we need to solve this puzzle.
Well, the thing is, they didn't think it had already started. Like, they were still trying to figure out.
So maybe Danny's character was key to get people to realize that this was something they should take seriously. And then because he served his purpose, he died.
But he didn't say people should take this seriously. He was just like dishing out random facts.
Yeah. True.
But he did nothing. It was more Zoe, and even Jay Ellis came up with some solutions in there. So
Yes, his character was very cutthroat. And I guess in another world, I might admire that. But I don't know. It just felt kind of short for me. I did appreciate, again, like you said, that he did solve some of the puzzles. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to turn my back around this guy either.
true. But at least you'd rather know that you're stuck in a room with someone who would do everything to try and find a way out.
Isn't that what you said about Arturo and Money Heist?
It's the same thing. Who would you rather? Being stuck with Danny or being stuck with Jay? Who would work his ass off to try and get you out of there? Or Danny, who would just not do anything of note or help you to solve anything?
I think Danny would be quite valuable. Once you slap him and shake him and be like, dude, this is real.
Once you slap him and shake him, he'll be crawled up in a ball and crying.
No, but
the whole time.
He mentioned that he did like 60 escape rooms.
Oh, I bet he failed in all of those.
But I guess he's one of those characters where you need to stroke his ego a little bit just to get a tiny, tiny semblance of something useful.
Well, you could also stroke Jay and he'll give you something reasonable
No, thank
as well.
you. Declined. No, thank you. We do not stand in this household.
Oh, maybe they needed Issa Rae in that room to get the best out of.
Don't even get me started on Issa Rae. We just got on the topic of this movie again. I will turn this ship around, sir.
All right, this is not. We're not talking about Insecure. So, in fact, we should do Insecure one of these days.
We should. Apparently, Issa Rae hasn't even started writing for the next season, so I'm a bit sad.
Meaning that we can actually do it.
And can Donald Glover get off the stage of Coachella and start getting on to Atlanta?
How awful was that performance?
Art is subjective, but I just want to say you can go and do whatever you.
Art is subjective.
You can go and do whatever you want, but give me my new season of Atlanta.
Yeah, he's doing everything now. He's got a new movie out on Amazon with Rihanna.
And we do. Can I just say, I love Rihanna in every facet of every ability ever. Rihanna all day, every day, less than 3, everything.
No, so you're not Team Beyonce.
We don't have the time, and I do not have the capacity.
Oh well, all right. Let's continue with the movie.
Yes, let's continue with the movie. So we were choosing between, does it have to be between Danny's character and Jay Ellis's character? Can we choose other people, or is it just those two?
You could choose anyone.
I would choose Amanda Harper through and through.
Amanda Harper.
Yeah, and even if she becomes useless, she'll end up sacrificing herself for me. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. I'd go with Zoe then. At least she's smart enough to figure everything out.
She was quite foundational to the story. But let's talk about Amanda before time gets away from us. There was a moment in the movie where things got a bit somber and things got a bit too real when she had her flashbacks about being back in Iraq. Well, essentially, she's a soldier, right? And it kind of spawned off into us having a conversation about just, people being thrown into the military or, willingly entering the military.
Regardless of how you get there.
Yeah. And I guess how they're treated or how they're not treated once they come back.
Because my trail of thought is if you serve your country should serve you once you get back.
Exactly.
And it's not fair to have all these veterans struggle to make ends meet when they've spent X amount of years or even months protecting the country that you live in, like to feel safe and to do whatever reasons. But it just doesn't make sense. And it's one of those things where you think that politicians would try and fix.
Yeah.
And the fact that we live in a country where, or we live in a world where you get all these people coming back with PTSD, not knowing how to cope with everything that they've experienced, because
Or
once
even trying to re-enter the workforce.
because it's not the same, is it? You go back, you go there and you see, whoa,
No, but you're actually at the helm of weapons that can and do minister harm. So of course you're not going to be the same person coming out the way that you went in, because to be effective in war is you kind of need to shut off that ability to have compassion. Right? Because people are people at the end of the day. But I guess if you're on one side, you kind of need to suspend that to be able to be effective in the way the government or the way that the country wants you to be. And when obviously not focusing on America or Australia, it's just talking about people in general. It's not really funny, but it's quite saddening that the only thing that we all, around the world have in common is we chew these well-meaning citizens up and we spit them out based on our purpose. And a lot of the times it's based on alliances. It's not even for your actual country.
True.
For the wars that you're fighting. And, I don't want us to get like super deep about that, because we're not
that podcast.
We're not that podcast. We can try and hit your feels every now and again. But I guess, the fact that we were watching this movie and it called out to us, I just wanted to mention that in this episode, because it's a disservice that we're doing where we're saying, you need to do this. And then once you come back, we don't even acknowledge, the sad and awful things that you had to do, because, I'm sure that there's like a minute amount of people that actually enjoy that. Right.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they go into war. But for the vast majority of people that are, say, for example, they don't even care about the political climate, but they're doing it to keep their family safe.
Yeah.
Right? How are they supposed to go back to their family sitting around the kids at Christmas or, at family gatherings and be okay after everything that they've gone through?
Yeah, it's a sad affair. And that's why looking at Amanda Harper having to do an escape route to get $10,000,
sad,
having served her country, is ridiculous.
Sad.
It should never be the case. Once you serve your country, you should be able to at the very least, be able to feed yourself, feed your family, just do the basics.
Yeah.
And the country should be able to pay for that. It's quite frankly, it's unacceptable. But we're digressing and...
Yeah, but so I guess you'll never know what you'll get for your reference. We can laugh at the word penis, and we can also, feel for people that are in the military. And we're not really talking about anything specific. It's just generally terrible the way that soldiers are being treated. So just as a general note, I guess just look out for each other, especially if you've got, family members or, just friends or loved ones that you care for that are in that sort of capacity. Just look out for them. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I did work with someone that is a veteran, and he was not the sort of person that would take a handout. He actually wanted to re-enter the workforce, but it was not easy for him. And, people would treat him differently just because he had a different experience to other people. And, you don't even need to say that shit. You can see it in people's faces.
Yeah.
You can see it in the way they choose not to interact or, just talk deeply. But he would tell me stories about how his support network with him and his buddies that have come back from war was so integral. How they would call each other just to spot check that they're still alive. You know, if someone's had a rough weekend, making sure that they're okay. So, you know, I guess you can call this movie a light, right? For all of the highs in this movie, this was definitely a low that sparked a conversation between the both of us.
It did. It did.
So, Amanda's character was very solid. It was very sad that she sacrificed herself, but she was also suffering during the whole escape room experience as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's just that mentality that she wanted to look out for her fellow comrade, so to speak.
True. And when they were being trapped in the fast room where they started turning the heat up, you could see how much it affected her because she was been in war, and the explosions and the heat and fire, it just brought back all these memories for her, and she was really struggling to try and maintain a calm state, to be in a calm state. And, you know, so you have all these aspects of war that would affect you in everyday life,
Yeah.
no matter how small. So,
Yeah, so that's, I think it was a worthwhile digression.
it was.
Let's continue to a character that's not very wholesome, not really of much value, so to speak. Ben Miller. What did you think about his character?
So he's struggling to get back into society, or, you know, to hold down a job without drinking too much. And one of the first scenes we're introduced to him, he's trying to ask his manager for promotion to be at the front desk.
Yeah.
But the manager's straight on to his face like, nope.
Mm-hmm.
And at first we're like, wow, that's kind of mean and rude,
Yeah.
you know? Because usually when you go to places like that, they usually try and train people
Yeah.
to be able to handle customer service and, you know, that sort of stuff. But no,
I guess as the movie progressed, we found
but
out
then
why.
and then they panned to his desk and he had a alcohol flask there.
But was there a part of you that that didn't so much feel sympathy for him? Is that harsh to say?
Yeah, I didn't feel sorry for him. I do not feel sorry for any drunk drivers. You put everyone else at risk, and I have zero sympathy. I have sympathy for the people that died in the car that were with him.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why you'd be driving drunk, especially knowing the effects.
Exactly.
And the risks and the dangers. So anyone that does that has no sympathy in my book. But he's not even, I don't even look at him as such a big character in this. And the fact that he survived throughout the whole movie just made me chuckle a bit, because the first scene of the movie is him struggling to get out of the room, right? And he's being squashed by a room that's receding in size.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, so this guy would essentially die in the end. But when we come to that scene, he finds a way to escape. And he goes and meets this Wu-Tan Yu guy.
Yeah.
And gets rescued by Zoe. He
didn't stand out in any way.
He didn't stand out in any way.
Maybe that was to his credit, because he wasn't self-sacrificing like Amanda.
No, he wasn't.
Right? He wasn't too hot. He wasn't too cold. He was like the Goldilocks in the middle, right?
Not even that. He was just cold. Like,
yeah, but no. My point is, usually people that run hot burn out, and usually people that run cold stay out in the cold. You know what I mean? So you kind of need to coast your way through the movie.
Like in the scene, he's part of the people are looking for a way to melt, I think, get a key from a block of ice.
Yeah.
And then he separates from the group and goes and starts smoking. And they ask, oh, give us your lighter. And he's like, fuck that. And then just throws it haphazardly on the floor. And Danny goes to try and get it and then sinks it, you know.
Then it dies.
So he didn't do anything for me in this movie. And
I'm not saying that I'm glad that he won. I'm just taking the movie for what it was.
Yeah, for what it was. Me too. And really didn't think much of him. if there were better characters who would have survived there.
Something more interesting that I think we should cover before we run out of time is the circumstances surrounding all of them. Because halfway through the movie, I did call it that these guys seem to have survived. And whoever the creator of this scenario was trying to make sure that they died or wanted to see who would come out on top.
Yeah, not only survive, but being sole survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there were hints of that along the way. I wouldn't say it's my most triumphant uncovering of a twist in a movie. See Book of Eli. But yeah, so I enjoyed the concept of that. It wasn't, like we said, this movie wasn't groundbreaking in any way, but it wasn't, it didn't make me want to take my time back from watching it.
True.
Which is also another big thing. So let's talk about it. So Zoe, before we even got to the escape room, I think she was in a college dorm room. I think that's what Americans call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like a background of an airport bathroom, not airport, an airplane bathroom. So I was like, oh, she must have been like a survivor in that movie. Right? Not in that movie, in that plane. So we've got Zoe surviving a plane crash. We've got Ben surviving
A
car crash that he essentially was literally at the driver's seat of. We've got Jay Alice's character, Jason, who, when he first told the story of him and his friend choking him and going crazy and swimming away, I told you, I'm like, that does not seem realistic at all. That motherfucker choked his friend, took his coat and kicked him off the boat.
Yeah. And that's what he did.
But that literally made no sense. Right? That would be like if The Life of Pi wasn't altruistic at all. And The Life of Pi is great. You should watch that as well. But that I didn't believe that that's what happened to Jason's character. That was not true by any sense. Who believes that? So you have Jay surviving on a boat. I would even be interested in the circumstances that they were on the boat, because maybe it was more unsavory than we thought.
Probably, knowing Jay.
That's just my bias. There you go. So we've got Jason's character. We also have Mike Nolan's character, where he was in a mine and everyone pretty much died, including his brother, except for Kim. That didn't seem like it was his fault, though.
No, it wasn't.
Very sad. Survivor's guilt, definitely. And then we have Amanda's character, who was the sole survivor during, I don't really understand army terms, but she was the only one that survived out of some incident.
Yeah, I think there was
How about Danny? His house burnt down?
Yes.
All of his family died and he survived.
Yeah. So they brought all these soul survivors to try and see who will be the ultimate survivor in the escape room. To the credit of Danny and not to Danny, to the credit of Ben and Zoe, they managed to survive this together.
Yeah.
And beat the game.
Yeah. I feel like they shouldn't have had the opening scene of the movie, even though there were further twists to Ben surviving. When they moved out of the triage hospital section and left Mike and Zoe's character in there, Jason and Ben go into that trippy TV static sort of room, right? In that moment, we knew that Ben was going to make it out because we saw the opening of the movie.
Yeah.
So I really don't understand what purpose it served.
It's true. And to quote Morty from Rick and Morty, you don't flash forward if it does nothing for the show. This is not verbatim of any
Wow,
sort.
wow, Morty sounds quite sexy.
But it's just, it doesn't make any sense. A flash forward should be used if not to keep us hooked to a movie because there's something interesting happening further along. But it should be used as a tool to progress a story or to shed light on aspects of the story early on, so that we know what will occur. Not just, oh, someone's gonna die, let me sit and watch until that moment happens and see what, it just doesn't make sense.
Definitely. Any other characters you want to talk about?
Not really, other than how many are they? Other than the 6 main characters, there's nothing else really. There's the detective who we saw afterwards, but he just had like 2 lines.
I thought he was Wu-Tan Yu. No, because it's, how you read a lot about serial killers or, killers in general that like to be at the scene of the crime. I thought it was going to be one of those twists. How did you feel about it when she went back to the scene of the crime and then she saw that everything was pretty much burnt to the ground?
I expected as much.
I like that they put the oven at the start because I would have got pissed off that everything got burnt just out of nowhere. And then it had no way out.
Yeah. So I thought it was quite clever in the part of the organization that does this, because I'm pretty sure they've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
And managed to get away with it. They couldn't be that sloppy, so that if someone did manage to escape, their whole operation would be disclosed, which just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the fact that everything gets burnt after they leave the room just makes perfect sense to me. And yeah.
But my blood
Leave no trace behind.
My blood started to boil because my innate disconcerting sort of apprehension of sequels started to arise and emerge. Because once I saw No Way Out, she was like, Wu-Tan Yu, No Way Out, it's part of the puzzle. I knew that this was slated for another sequel. And I just didn't. I just wanted to log off. I wanted to Alt F4 because I guess it just really bothers me. In this world of sequels, it's nice to have like an original story that just leaves it. I know that there's the enticement of money bags and I guess to remain relevant, but it just bothered me. And looking at Wikipedia, there is a sequel that's slated to be released in 2020.
Well, whether that
essentially
happens,
this time next year.
Yeah, whether that happens again, it's not known.
Well, at the end of this movie, we do see the actual ending of this movie. Zoe meets up with Ben's character 6 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And she essentially takes him through all of the suspicious post activities that all of the people that were part of the escape room died from normal causes.
Yeah, like just random accidents here and there, ran over by a car, skiing accident.
So from her point of view, and I guess from our point of view, these are essentially conspiracies to cover up the truth, right? And then something pretty exciting, you see a plane simulation. I was waiting to see Zoe's character, but we later found out it was a simulation. And they're essentially preparing because they've intercepted the fact that she has bought plane tickets. Yeah.
So I found that interesting as well. And I think they're setting...
But would you watch another 90 minutes of this?
Probably not.
Probably not.
This was an alright movie, and I'll leave it there. There's no need for me to continue living into this world.
Yeah, so if you want to reignite OT's passion, and particularly if you're in Australia, feel free to invite OT and I to an escape room. And you can experience it firsthand, sir, with Wu-Tan Yu.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we've got our fill. And before we escape from this room, if you'll pardon the pun, we're going to give our recommendations in our segment called For Your Reference.
So I have 2 recommendations. One is I mentioned earlier in the movie in the podcast, which is The Cube from 1997. It's really, really good if you want to see a sort of an escape room done right, then definitely watch The Cube. And my second recommendation would be Circle from
Yes.
Yeah, so Circle is pretty much the
Yes.
same concept where people are brought in together to try and figure out how they could get out of weird puzzles and scenarios. So definitely watch it. And yeah.
Well, if you've been paying attention, you would have heard my two references. The History Channels alone, I know I didn't say we wouldn't make the main for your reference segment, but there you go. You should definitely watch it. And something to keep you entertained, in the later seasons, they actually have a two-person team, sorry. So that's quite interesting dynamic as well, even though we prefer the one contestant sort of deal. So definitely give out Alone History Channels a go. History Channel, we have recommended Alone, and we have done an episode on Vikings, so I'll wait for our check in the mail. And the second recommendation reference that I will give to you guys this week is Agatha Christie in any capacity, but in particular the BBC miniseries from 2015, And Then There Were None.
Nice.
It's got our Tywin Lannister as well in there. So if you've enjoyed this, if you want to see what we're doing in between episodes, on Twitter and Instagram, we're For Your Ref Pod.
And if you want to write us an email, you can do that at hello@fyrdpodcast.com.
Solve the riddle, guys. Escape the room.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.